Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Urban Legends video. Alright, let's go ahead and we'll start this new series here based on your suggestions. This first one, however, is actually one that I came across myself only because I've been immersing myself in the world of Silent Hill. And yes, I'm late to the party, but when it comes to the world of Silent Hill, I'm just barely discovering it. I've known about the movies and I've seen the movies, but as far as the games themselves, and in some cases the franchises tied to them, like the comic books or some of the other miscellaneous like soundtracks, I'm barely getting into that world, and it's a very fascinating world. And I might actually, to give you a hint, start doing podcasts about Silent Hill because so many of the monsters, so many of the themes, they really are tied to like urban legends and then cryptids and monsters type status. So be on the lookout for that. But one of the things that stood out was the idea that Silent Hill, one of their experiences from the first game, is related to an urban legend there in Japan. And what I'm talking about is the urban legend known as the Hanako-San. It's two words, Hanako, first word, San being the next one. And it has to do with the idea of a ghost or something, some entity of sorts, that's found in a bathroom in a very particular way. In other words, it's not just randomly found. You have to do a particular set of steps in order to come across this entity or this ghost. And again, it all came from Silent Hill because of the very brief encounter where the protagonist there, there's this part where he's in the bathroom of some sort, and he comes across a stall and there's some crying in the stall, and then looking up that information, that's where it led to this, the Hanako-San. So what is the Hanako-San? It's an urban legend that has been pretty recent. Recent in the sense that it's been around for about 20 years. So this is not something that's been around for hundreds of years, but instead is pretty recent. And there was a point, in fact, where there was almost like a huge turnout of people claiming to have seen the Hanako-San. In fact, somewhere around 20 years ago, it was almost like a phenomenon status, where on a nationwide basis, there were stories and stories, what's considered like a wave of stories, left and right, especially on schoolyards, about this particular sighting. So what is Hanako-San itself? Well, Hanako-San is like this. It's the idea of something being in a, for whatever reason, in a girl's restroom, but again, there has to be a very particular set of circumstances in order to encounter the Hanako-San. It's a ghost. It's a female ghost, and in some cases, it's a ghost that either has no legs, or in most cases, it's just like a regular-looking girl. But it is the creepy-looking ghost of a girl, the kind with the ashen face, maybe the black pupils, the stringy black hair, the stuff that you've seen, like for example when it comes to The Ring. It's the same concept, but in this case, this is a real life encounter, considering so many people that have claimed to have come across the Hanako-San. And the idea is this. This is the way that you can entice or you can bring out the Hanako-San. There are various versions, but this is the most common way, or the most commonly cited way. You cannot just go to any building to encounter the Hanako-San. No, you have to go to specifically to a building that at least has 3 floors. And when you go to that 3rd floor, then you have to go to the girls' bathroom. So again, guys, don't do this obviously, but anybody that a woman, young girl, whoever who's going to the women's bathroom, this is how it goes. You have to go again to the 3rd floor, and you have to go to the bathroom that's located on the 3rd floor. Apparently it's not any particular bathroom. As long as there's a bathroom there, even if there's multiple, then you're in the right spot. And then once you're in there, you have to go to the 3rd stall located in that bathroom. And then once you're there, outside of the 3rd stall, you have to knock 3 times. You notice a pattern. All of these things have to do with the number 3. And so when you knock a 3rd time, then you have to ask, "Are you there, Hanako-San?" And the idea is that if you've done all this correctly, then you will hear a voice answer back saying, "Yes, I'm here," or something to that effect. And whenever that occurs, if you're brave enough, you can open the door, and then inside there you will actually see the ghost or whatever that entity is, in this case being a small girl, and the girl is usually in a red skirt, but she is not innocent looking. Again, we're talking about something straight from the ring when it comes to her appearance. Very creepy, very evil. It's not a good entity. It's not the kind that you're essentially thinking that you're going to have, let's say, happy experience where people are going out and they're enjoying the like tales. No, this is the bad stuff. This is not something good. So that's the essentially it. It's very simple, very straightforward. But again, you go to a building that has at least 3 floors. You go to the 3rd floor. You go specifically to the girls' restroom. Again, just women, ladies for this. And then once you go in, you go to the 3rd stall, knock on it 3 times, and then ask that one simple question. So that's the experience, and that's the stories that are tied. There were a wave of these again that people encountered, so much so that children there in Japan were having a severe sense of dread anytime they had to go use the restroom, because apparently it wasn't just people experiencing it, let's say just on the 3rd floor, but people were actually experiencing it throughout multiple locations, either 1st floor, 2nd floor, whether the building was more than 1 story, it didn't matter. People were experiencing it right then and there. Pretty freaky stuff. And so the idea is that whatever this entity is, whatever it could be, it's still around. People to this day use it, and it's a way to try to, kind of like with Bloody Mary, the urban legend tied to that. It's a way for people to kind of play a prank on their friends. It's usually around people that are getting together with their friends, and the usual thing where it's at night, and people ask, do you want to do something scary, and that's where people go and then do this. And of course, with the circumstances involving of, let's say, things being dark, people's senses are already heightened because of the darkness. People can then start seeing things that normally aren't there, just because of the fact that if you're looking for something in the darkness, then most likely you'll see it only because you're looking for something. And then that's it. As far as the variations of the Hanako-San, there are actually 3 of them, and these are the 3 variations or the 3 types of Hanako-San that you could come across. One is called the Yamagata Prefecture, and the idea is after Hanako-San answers and you enter the stall, then he or she, in this case if it's a dude that goes in there, will find the girl, but then it actually turns into some kind of 3-headed lizard, and then this lizard will eat the person. That's a little bit of a stretch, because obviously we would have had or heard something along those lines if that really happened. Now the second variation is called the Owati Prefecture, and it's the same thing, all the steps as before, but this time after opening the stall and looking inside, instead you will see a very large white hand. I don't know if you see the girl with the red skirt, but you'll definitely see a very large white hand emerge straight from that stall trying to grab you, and then of course people will run away at that point, and then that's it. And then the third one is called the Kanagawa Prefecture, and what this is same thing, same steps as before, but once you open up the stall, once you're there, you won't actually see the girl or the white hand, but you'll see actually a blood stained hand, and who knows, maybe this is the same thing when it'll reach out for you. By the way, Hanako is apparently the name of this urban legend because at the time that it was being created, or that the urban legend took on a life of its own, Hanako was a very common name there in Japan, so it just stuck. It's one of those things where if it's repeated enough times, people will eventually get used to it, and it becomes the common thing to say. So in this case, that's why it's called Hanako-San. So interesting stuff. Very fascinating to see that this kind of urban legend kind of influenced Silent Hill in a way where, at least for one brief moment within the game, the main character almost experienced something like this. Another interesting thing to note is that the stalls there in Japan, and somebody please correct me on this, I don't know if this is still 100% or not, but apparently the stalls there, the restroom stalls, how they're made also depends on your experience with Hanako-San, because if it's a traditional, let's say, toilet, an upright standing toilet, then Hanako-San will appear straight from inside the toilet, all creepy looking. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that would send shivers down your spine. But and this is where I might need a correction. But is this is this correct that in Japan some of the stalls there are actually on the ground, like that they're actually they're not a upright standing stall, but they're actually flat. I mean, to flat to the point that they are the ground itself, and except for a little indenture on the bottom, then that's it. Like that's the toilet. Well, if that's the case, that's where she would rise instead. She'll rise from whatever is there on the ground, consider that's consisting the toilet, and then that's when Hanako-san will appear straight from there. So pretty creepy stuff. So if anyone has any more information on this urban legend, any other experiences, anyone else as far as what the tales are tied to it, please, it'll be fascinating to hear regarding this urban legend. How big is it too? I mean, the impression that I got was that this is their version of like a Bloody Mary. Everyone knows here in America the story of Bloody Mary, so I'm wondering if that's the same thing there in Japan. So if anyone has any info tied to that, it'll be fascinating to hear. So alright everybody, thanks again as always, take care.